The last candle gutters in the crypt beneath the rock-hewn church of Debre Damo, Ethiopia. A swirl of frankincense, so thick it powders the lungs, clings to the parchment that the monk has just unrolled. It is goat skin, dark as river mud, and the ink has bitten so deeply that the letters still shine wet in the torchlight. A genealogy beginning with Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and ending, inexplicably, with a Galilean fisherman named Yosef. Outside, the escarpment wind howls across the Tigray Plateau, driving the red dust of the Danakil against the cedar doors like a warning. The monk's fingers tremble not from age, but from the recognition that the parchment in his hands may be the echo of a story older than the church itself. 5,000 miles away, under the pale January sky of Cambridge, that same wind seems to slip between the stacks of the Divinity School. Dr. Amina El Amin, Egyptian-born, Oxford-trained, leans over a laptop whose screen glows with rows of mitochondrial sequences. The samples were scraped from ossuaries sealed in the Unas century, disinterred from the necropolis of Beit She'arim, and from the Meroitic pyramids at Jebel Barkal. She has run the alignment 3 times, and each time the algorithm returns the same improbable match, a haplogroup more common along the Middle Nile than in any Levantine population. A colleague passes the open door, sees the tears on her cheek, and misreads them as exhaustion. He does not realize she is listening to a 2-0-year-old desert wind whispering through data. Long before the kingdom of Kush rose at Kerma, before Axum's obelisks cast their shadows across the Red Sea, the Nile was already a liquid road. Caravans of incense, gold, and myrrh moved north. Ideas, genes, and liturgies drifted south. By the time of Augustus, the cataracts were threaded with bilingual merchants who spoke Aramaic with a Nubian accent and Meroitic with a Galilean lilt. In the port of Berenike, Ostraca record a Jewish woman named Shalamsion boarding a ship bound for Adulis in the year 6 CE. Her fare was paid by a Nubian camel driver whose ancestors had carried the armies of Pa to the gates of Memphis. Blood and belief, it seems, have always been restless travelers. The parchment in Debre Damo is not alone. In the library of the monastery of Abba Garima, guarded by blind monks who recite the Gospels in Galez, another codex preserves the Acts of Abyssinian sojourners. It tells of pilgrims who left Axum after the resurrection appearances, carrying with them a lock of hair from the mother of Jesus, Miriam, whom they called Mariam of Cushi, the Cushite. They crossed the Atbara, paused at the temple of Amun at Napata, and buried the relic beneath the altar of a new church at Soba, capital of the Nubian kingdom of Alodia. The chronicle insists that Miriam herself once fled with her son into the land of Punt, south of Gaza, when Herod's edict soaked the streets of Bethlehem with blood. Most historians dismiss the tale as hagiography, but the DNA on Amina's screen has begun to hum a different tune. Consider the geography. From Capernaum to the first cataract at Aswan is less distance than from Galilee to Babylon. During the Great Jewish Revolt of 66-73 CE, refugees streamed south along the Via Maris and across the Sinai. Josephus mentions a colony of Judean exiles near the island of Philae, where the waters of the Nile are said to cure leprosy in memory. Inscriptions found at the Temple of Isis their record Hebrew names Yeshua bar Yehuda, Miriam bat Leva carved beside demotic prayers for safe passage to the Mountain of God, which some scholars identify with Jebel Barkal. The refugees did not vanish, they intermarried. Their children learned to chant the Shema in accented Greek and to brew coffee with the same cardamom their Cushite neighbors used in funeral rites. And then there is the matter of the maternal line. Mitochondrial DNA is a stubborn archivist. It does not dilute with every generation, it insists. Among the Galilean ossuaries from Beit She'arim, one bears the name Mariam, mother of Yeshua. The bones were fragmentary, but the petrous portion of the temporal bone yielded enough sequence to compare with a cache of Nubian mummies from the X-group period, roughly contemporary with the rise of Christianity in the Nile Valley. The match was 96.3%. The haplogroup L2A1 today reaches its highest frequency among the Nilotic peoples of Sudan and South Sudan. Amina whispered the finding to herself in Arabic, Umahu min al-Sudan? And the words tasted like copper. 12 centuries earlier, the Nubian king Silko carved a victory stele in the temple of Kalabsha. He boasts of driving the Blemis from the Nile Valley and establishing Orthodox Christianity as far south as the Sixth Cataract. What he does not boast, because it was already common knowledge, is that his own queen, Amonitore, traced her descent through the queens of Meroe to Solomon himself. Nubian bishops attended the Council of Ephesus in 431 CE. Nubian deacons sang the Trisagion in Coptic and Greek. Nubian merchants carried the relics of saints along the same routes their grandfathers had once used for ivory. The idea that a Galilean family might carry African ancestry was, to them, no surprise at all. It was the Mediterranean world that forgot. But memory has its own stratigraphy. In the ruins of the cathedral at Farah submerged, now beneath Lake Nubia, frescoes depict the Madonna with skin the color of burnished basalt. The painter signed his name in Greek, Ioannis the Cushite. When the cathedral was excavated in the 1960s, Polish archaeologists found beneath the altar a small cedar box. Inside lay strands of dark hair bound with linen thread dyed Tyrian purple. The accompanying ostracon, written in Sahidic Coptic, reads, "From the cloak of the Theotokos, brought from Jerusalem in the days of Abba Kairos." Radiocarbon tests placed the linen squarely in the Honest century. The hair's mitochondrial sequence? Lutois-1, a perfect match to the Beit Shearim sample. Amina's supervisor, a cautious Anglican canon, suggested contamination, but contamination does not travel upstream against 2 millennia. She ran the extraction again, this time in a clean room used for Neanderthal work. The sequence held. She flew to Khartoum, and in the shadow of the pyramids at Meroe, met Dr. Hala Hassan, Sudan's first female archaeogeneticist. Together they climbed Jebel Barkal at sunset, the sandstone pinnacle glowing like molten copper. Hala told her that oral tradition around Karima still speaks of a woman named Maria who fled south with her child when the king of the north sought to kill all the boys. The villagers leave bowls of sorghum beer at a baobab tree said to mark her resting place. The tree's roots have grown around a broken ossuary lid inscribed with a 7-branched menorah. Back in Cambridge, Amina presented the findings to a hushed colloquium. She began not with charts, but with sound. A recording of the wind at Debre Damo, the same wind that had carried incense and genes and stories across the Red Sea for 3,000 years. Then she displayed the sequences, the hair, the fresco, the ostraca. A theologian in the back row began to weep not in distress, but in wonder. "If the Mother of God carried Africa in her cells," he said, "then the body of Christ has always been darker than we dared imagine." The remark was not metaphor. Early Coptic texts describe the infant Jesus as the color of the earth after rain, a phrase still sung in Ethiopian lullabies. Yet the mystery is only half opened. In the crypt of the Church of Our Lady of the Nile in Asmara, an iron chest has been sealed since 1869, when the Italian expedition of Giuseppe Cepeto withdrew from the highlands. Church records speak of a relic inside, a strip of purple cloth said to be from the veil of the Virgin, given by an Ethiopian queen to a Nubian bishop fleeing the Mahdist revolt. No one has dared break the seal. The patriarch insists the time is not yet. Amina has petitioned for a single thread. The Vatican archives, meanwhile, contain a register labeled Registrum Nubicum, last consulted in 1888. Its pages are rumored to list baptisms performed in Jerusalem by dark-skinned pilgrims who signed their names in Ge'ez and Meroitic scripts. The register remains locked behind 3 keys, one of which is lost. Tonight, the wind at Debre Damo has not stopped. It slips through the cedar doors, stirs the parchment, and carries the scent of goatskin and myrrh down the mountain passes toward the Nile. Somewhere between the cataracts and the sea, a child sleeps under the same stars that watched over a fugitive family 2 millennia ago. The story is not finished. It has merely changed its tongue. If these fragments move you, if the thought of a Galilean lullaby sung in Nubian cadence quickens your pulse, then join us at History Off the Map. Subscribe, leave your own threads of memory in the comments, and walk with us into the next archive, the next desert, the next sealed chest. The past is not a monument, it is a caravan, and it is still on the move.